Hello everyone, my name is Bergie and welcome back to my channel. So you want to go to a furry convention. The first and most obvious thing you need to figure out is, which convention do you want to go to? There are tons of furry conventions all over the world, so it's your job to do your homework and figure out which one is the right one for you. The first things to take into consideration when you're thinking about going to a convention are where the convention is and when the convention is happening. Thankfully, if you go to furrycons.com, there's an entire list of upcoming furry conventions and it lists where they are and when they're happening. As you can see, Anthrocon is coming up in July of this year, and that's the convention that I'm going to be going to. So you found out what convention you want to go to and where it is and when it's happening, so the next thing you need to figure out is, can you afford to go to a convention? This is definitely the most important thing you need to think about when wanting to go to a furry convention. Furry conventions are not cheap, and you need to make sure you budget accordingly. So the main expenses you're going to run into when budgeting for a furry convention are registration, hotel, travel, food, and then I would also set aside some money for the dealer's den. Even if you don't plan on buying anything in the dealer's den, I would still suggest having some money set aside just in case you go through and something catches your eye. The cost of registration depends on what convention you go to, but ordinarily it ranges somewhere between $80 to $120. But that registration cost also gets you access to the entire convention for all of the days that it's happening. If you have a little extra money laying around, or if you want to get a little more out of your convention experience, you can also apply for sponsor registration, or in some cases, super sponsor registration. Most times, super sponsor or sponsor registrations come with additional perks than just regular attendance does. With a sponsor or super sponsor registration, sometimes you get access to convention spaces a little bit early, or sometimes you'll get a few extra little things here and there, like you'll get a shirt or a pin or something like that all the regular attendants won't necessarily get. Now the cost of hotels is also going to vary quite a bit as well. Hotels are generally going to have their own price range depending on where the hotel is at or what convention it is, but most time the convention itself will have certain blocks of the hotel set aside specifically for the convention attendants. And not only do you need to take into account what hotel you're going to be staying at, but are you going to be staying at a hotel at all? Depending on what convention you go to or how close you are to the convention, you might not even necessarily need a hotel. You could probably just commute back and forth to the convention center from wherever you live. That would definitely save you a lot of money because hotels can be pretty expensive sometimes. Another thing to take into consideration when budgeting is travel costs. Now, depending on what convention you decided to go to, there's usually two main ways of transportation to get to the convention: carpooling or flying. Now, whether or not you have a fursuit with you or plan on taking a fursuit with you heavily weighs into this decision. In my experience, I like to carpool to conventions a lot more than flying because I don't trust TSA enough to not absolutely destroy my fursuit when taking it onto an airplane. And also, I just like the feeling of driving better. It's just a more overall better experience for me personally. But if you do plan on flying, or if the convention is overseas and you don't have a choice, then you're definitely going to have to do your research with what airline you take and what size baggage they allow into their baggage area. This will play into what kind of container you are going to have to transport your suit in. If you're taking your fursuit on an airline, they're most likely going to have size restrictions on what bags you can take onto the plane, so you might have to end up taking one or even two full-size luggages to fit your suit into. Now, if you decide to not fly and take the carpooling route, then there's still a couple different ways you need to figure out how to transport your fursuit. A couple different ways would include using a large plastic tote, which I like to use because not only can I fit my entire fursuit in there, but I can also fit the rest of my luggage in there as well that's not even necessarily part of my fursuit. It's just my regular clothes and necessities for the weekend.
Also, I'm a complete sucker for stickers, so if you see me at a convention, I'll definitely try to trade you for one to put on my tote, because eventually, one day, I want to try to have this thing completely covered in stickers.
I would also recommend, if your fursuit is not too terribly big, to get a nice hockey bag, because they are designed to hold big, heavy equipment back and forth to arenas and stuff like that. So it's a really good option if you have a medium to small sized fursuit and you can just hang it over your shoulder. Now, if you're not taking a suit with you, or if you just have like a head or a very small partial, you could probably get away with fitting that into just a large luggage bag. But you might have to be careful with actually putting your head in there, as some heads are not necessarily safe to put into luggage like that. So you're going to have to do your research to figure out if your head can withstand being in a luggage for that long. Now, if you figured out what hotel you're going to be staying at, it's definitely going to be a good idea to look around the nearby area and see what other things are around. The main things I would look out for are what kinds of restaurants or food chains there are around in the local area. If you're at a convention, you're definitely going to have to sit down and eat real food at some point. You cannot survive the entire weekend off of just snacks alone. As much as I would love to do that, and as much as I know some of you would like to do that as well, it is just not a good idea, and I cannot recommend it. That being said, it is a good idea to take snacks with you anyway, just in case you're in between panels, or if there's somewhere you know you need to get quickly. You can still snack on something without having to go out and get a full-course meal. Things like chips, pretzels, and crackers usually suffice for me, but you do whatever you feel is necessary. So now that you figured out what convention you're going to, how you're going to get there, and what hotel you're going to be staying at, I would highly suggest putting together a checklist to make sure you have everything before you get going to the convention. One thing that I see a lot of people overlook when they go to conventions is make sure you bring a good set of sneakers or really comfy shoes to walk around in, because if you're at a convention, you're going to be walking around basically for 3 to 4 days straight, and if you don't have comfortable shoes to walk around in, your feet and your legs are going to be pretty sore by the end of the convention. So you've picked a convention, you've figured out how you're going to get there, you've gotten to your hotel, you're at the convention, and now what? Number 1, definitely look at what the convention has to offer. Most conventions will have a list of all the stuff they have going on throughout the weekend, so I would definitely take a look at that to see what the convention has going on. If there's anything you'd see on that list that you'd want to go to, I definitely would say go to it, because as a lot of people say, the more you put into furry conventions, the more you will get out of them. Now, I know that does kind of sound like, yeah, whatever, blah, 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 but I actually do think that that is true. Because the first year that I went to a convention, I kind of just was waiting for stuff to happen and waiting for stuff to come to me to entertain me, but that's not exactly how conventions work. You need to figure out what interests you and what kind of things you find interesting, and you need to seek them out yourself. So the more you do that and the more you seek out the things that you want to do in a convention, the better experience you will have at the convention as a whole. Number 2, make sure you know your local surroundings. Now, if you're looking at the convention schedule and there's nothing that really catches your eye for a few hours, I would definitely recommend checking out what's around the local scene. Most times conventions are in really big cities, so it's a good idea to do the research on not just the convention itself, but the city that is hosting it. For example, when I was at MFF a couple years ago, there wasn't really anything going on for a few hours that I was really interested in doing, so me and my dad decided, hey, let's go to a Blackhawks game, because we're in Chicago. So that's exactly what we did. We went to the Blackhawks game, we watched it, and then we came back to the convention to do something afterwards. Now, I know not everyone is a sports fanatic like me, so I know there are other things that cities could offer that aren't necessarily sports related, but are still entertaining anyway. Sometimes even businesses outside of the convention will have convention-themed things or items that they have for sale simply because they know that the convention is going on that weekend, so I would definitely look into that too. Number 3, make sure you have proper hydration and food. I always make sure to bring both water and Gatorade with me to any convention I go to, because it is very vital to stay hydrated when you're at a convention, especially if you are a fursuiter. Staying hydrated is the most important thing I can recommend to a fursuiter, because without hydration, you will literally pass out, and you don't want the EMT to come to the convention and have to cut you out of your fursuit to save your life. And lastly, just have fun. You're at a furry convention. You're there to have fun. Do what you think you want to do. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean go running around, breaking rules, and being obnoxious and everything, but go enjoy what the convention and the city has to offer. But please, when you are at a convention, for your sake and the sake of everyone around you, please make sure that you shower at least once a day. Nobody wants to be that one person who is walking around a convention and is just smelling bad. You don't want that, trust me. People are not going to want to talk to you or be your friend. And that about covers everything I had for this video. Let me know, what was your guys' first convention? And if there's anything else I missed, please let me know in the comments, or if there's something you guys would like to see me do in a future video, please let me know. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. And that's about all I got for this one. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye! So it's your job to figure out which one is the right one. This is hard. Now, depending on what convention you decided to go to, it would be... I'm still recording, right? So the main costs you're going to run into when attending a convention are the registration, the travel, food, And then also something else that I forgot. Whoo, boo, 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 boo.